Good evening. I'd like to call the September 4th, 2012 Longmont City Council meeting to order. This is a regular session. Could we please start with the roll call?
Yes, Mayor Coombs.
Present.
Council members Bagley.
Here.
Finley. Here. Levison. Here. Samori. Present. Santos. Here. Witt. Here. Mayor Coombs, we have a quorum.
All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anyone wishing to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, will need to add his or her name to the list outside the council chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at first call, public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their names on that list will have an opportunity to speak during the public hearing items this evening or at the final call, public invited to be heard on any item at the end of the meeting. Valerie, are there any agenda revisions, submissions of documents?
Yes, Mayor Coombs. Resolution R 2012-74, that's the one urging Longmont citizens to vote yes on the public service franchise, was emailed to you last Friday, and it's going to be added to the agenda's consent agenda item G. And then also there was some information placed at your desk tonight on the 2013 budget that go along with item 11B.
Okay, thank you. Is there a report from the city manager?
No report tonight, Mayor, Council.
All right, we'll start with first call on public invited to be heard. Do you have the list? Okay. Oh, okay. Let's try your best then.
Now it's on. Okay, yeah, Mayor Coombs, City Council. Just a couple of things. I don't think I'll go deep into philosophy tonight because maybe I'm not up to it. I think truth factor is significant. I watched most of the Republican convention last week, and the only one that really shocked me was Paul Ryan. Basically, everything he said was false, and it was a speech right out of Joseph Goebbels. Hardcore, if you say the lie strong enough and big enough, you can get people to crumble to it. I specifically just mentioned Medicare, which they claim that Obama is taking $716 billion. Actually, that is reduction in waste, and that is coming out of the insurance companies and providers who have been stealing that money. And the very same amount, the very same number, comes out of the Ryan budget, but he didn't mention that. Medicare fraud is the basic financing for how the governor of Florida, Rick Scott, got to be governor, who is probably the #1 Medicare thief in the entire country. But anyway, let's get away from that. The GM plant in Jamesville, I know a lot about that. I've been to Jamesville. I used to live in Madison, and 5,000 workers. Candidate Obama, in February of 2008, said if the United States would support its own homegrown companies and workers, then this plant should last for 100 years. Ryan distorted that and said that if I was president, I would make sure and keep it here. Well, that's a blatant lie. And let's go June 3rd, 2008. Dana Perino, press secretary for President Bush, said when they announced they were going to close the plant. June the 3rd, 2008. GM announced to close the Janesville plant. 2 minutes gone already? I don't think so. She said, it's fine with us. It shows that they are flexible and they want to keep up with the world market. This is tragic, the amount of lies that are going out publicly to the American people. And just since my time has somehow run out, today is the 69th day of over 90 degrees. The all-time record is 61. Thank you.
Thank you, Strider. All right, I guess we don't have anything on second reading, so we're at the consent agenda.
Okay. First item, consent agenda 9A is resolution 2012-69. This is a resolution of the Council of the City of Longmont finding that the petition for annexation of certain parcels of land located in Boulder County, State of Colorado, known as the Fairgrounds Marketplace Annexation, generally located south of Rogers Road and west of Hover Street, substantially complies with the Colorado Revised Statutes, Section 3112-1071. Item 9B is Resolution 2012-70, setting the fee for cash in lieu of water rights transfers from $11,184 per acre-foot to $13,158 per acre-foot. Item 9C is Resolution 2012-71. This is a resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement between the City and Boulder County establishing the Boulder County Bomb Squad. Item 9D is Resolution 2012-72. Approving the intergovernmental agreement between the City, Boulder County, and the City of Boulder regarding cooperation among existing bomb squads. Item 9E is Resolution 2012-73, urging Longmont citizens to vote yes on ballot issue 3A regarding the school mill levy override on the November 6, 2012 statewide general election ballot. Item 9F is approve the mail ballot plan for the Longmont Downtown Development Authority November 6, 2012 special election and direct the city clerk to submit the plan to the Secretary of State for final approval. Item 9G is Resolution 2012-74, urging Longmont citizens to vote yes on the ballot question regarding whether to grant Public Service Company of Colorado a gas franchise. Staff does not need to pull any items.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coons. I would remove 9A. And if there are no others,
Okay, let's see. Councilmember Levison.
Yes, acknowledging we have someone here from the school district, I'd like to pull 9E.
Councilmember Samori.
I'd like to pull 9B.
All right. Councilmember Witt.
I would like to move the consent agenda minus A, B, and E.
All right, let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0. Councilmember Santos.
Mayor Coombs, Don Burchett is here to answer any questions.
Okay.
hey, Don, you're almost out of time.
I'll be quick.
Thanks for coming.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you. Fairgrounds Marketplace has come several times before, hasn't it?
Mayor Coons, members of council, yes, this is the second time actually third time that the city council has seen this annexation request.
Are they under the impression that the last several times they've come before council, they met with council members individually, saying that they needed some sort of help with their infrastructure and the fees that go along with that? Are they anticipating asking the city for that again? Are you aware?
Mayor Coons, Mayor Santos, I'm going to defer that to the Economic Development Director as he can explain any discussions that they've had regarding that situation.
Okay, thanks. Hey, Brad.
Good evening, Mayor Coons, members of council. Brad Power, I'm the director of the Economic Development Department. Mayor Pro Tem Santos, you are correct in that there have been in the past two requests, one informal and one formal, for financial assistance for the development of the Fairgrounds Marketplace project. The first informal one was approximately 2 to 2.5 years ago, and that was just at the staff level at that time. And then subsequent to that, there was a formal request in front of the City Council for the consideration in concept of financial assistance for the project. The council at that time declined to provide that type of assistance to facilitate the development, and that was based on the staff recommendation that we've had for several years in the community, which would focus financial investment on the public side for retail development for areas that are within one of our established redevelopment districts or urban renewal areas. And so that was conveyed to the applicant. They're aware of that. I'm assuming that they're still aware of that. And as you very well know and the community well knows, that our primary focus for a potential public-private partnership at this time relative to retail development is obviously focused in the Twin Peaks Mall area.
Well, I hope that they're still aware of that, because the main redevelopment project in the city of Longmont is the redevelopment of Twin Peaks Mall, at least in my mind. And hopefully they are aware of that, and hopefully this council will also continue that that direction of, you know, we're focusing on redevelopment instead of contributing to greenfield development in the non-urban renewal area. So with that, I will move Resolution 2012-69.
Second.
Councilmember Bagley?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Yeah, don't go nowhere. I guess my question is, I noticed that, so the requested zoning, when this comes up for the annexation on the 9th of October, they're going to be asking to be zoned in as commercial, C commercial, correct?
I believe that's correct.
I also noticed that, what's the difference between regional commercial and C commercial is my first question.
Okay, if you'll allow me, I'll pass that back to Don, and he can explain the distinction in more detail than I could.
Mayor Coombs, members of council, Don Burchett, Economic Development. Councilmember Bagley, the regional commercial designation is truly meant for the types of uses that would actually draw people in from a larger trade area than just, say, the city of Longmont. Typically, though, it would include like the mall area when you have users that are in the mall that you can only find in a store that is going to be located a certain distance from another branch or another outlet of the same kind of store. So, for example, a Macy's is not going to be in every store along the Front Range in every city. It would only be maybe in a shopping center such as the mall or Centerra or something like that. So the regional commercial is truly meant to be a larger draw area, whereas our commercial zoning districts allow for not only for regional uses, they also allow for more local commercial uses. So that would allow for grocery stores, gas stations, dry cleaners, versus, say, a larger user that would need more space. So that's truly the typical difference between a regional commercial zoning district and the C commercial zoning district.
And then I guess my next question, I mean, when I read this, my concern is, I mean, I see a potential conflict coming up, meaning that you've got private property owner or private property rights, but at the same time, we have the desire to make sure that the mall doesn't fold in on itself, et cetera. The questions that I have are, number one, that particular area, do we have any type of data? Have we done any type of studies, research, et cetera, as to what kind of additional retail, in addition to the mall, that particular area can handle? I mean, we're always changing zoning, looking at zoning when people annex into the city, Mill Village being the most recent, and we hear information and data regarding this is why it's needed, this is why it's not needed. As they go to annex into the city, I know it's part of the Longmont Area Comprehensive Plan, but is it appropriate? I mean, what are their expectations? What are our expectations? Are we going to screw up the mall? Do we know? Do we have any data whatsoever to know, can it handle more retail down there?
Mayor Coombs and Councilmember Bagley, I'm going to continue to play tennis with Brad Power and let him answer that one for you.
Thank you, Don. Councilmember Bagley, we have not done a formal market analysis or anything of that nature relative to the demand for additional retail in that area. I do think it's fair to be said that the Hover Road is a destination that retailers are specifically interested in. And so there is a balance between how much commercial square footage the market could supply and the decisions you will be making in terms of an investment in a potential project at Twin Peaks Mall. So it's hard to say right now and in this market whether or not one would undermine the other, one would support the other, because we had no real information about what types of tenants that could be going into Fairgrounds Marketplace, and whether it would directly compete with some of the other areas. I do think it raises an interesting question for the future, which is taking a look perhaps citywide at some point post redevelopment of Twin Peaks to analyze how much retail space is properly zoned in the city and how much growth area do we realistically have relative to the market growth that we've got on the horizon. So all of that being said, I think if all things are square and if this council decides to annex the property, and if the developer goes forward and an application comes through to our office without a public investment component, at that point they would be treated like any other applicant. We would process the application and bring it forward in the requisite process for approval. The burden on them is on them to tenant the project. That's really not on the city to make that decision. But again, the distinction that we've been drawing over the last several years in the community is related to that public investment component, and that's where you do have some choices to make in terms of shaping the retail future in the community.
And I guess for my fellow council members, my concern is I just see a problem coming. And what I don't want to see happen is that we have two projects that are potentially awesome that neither one of them goes through as a result of us misreading the market. Would it be appropriate to ask for some type of market analysis prior to October 9th? Would that be appropriate?
Are you speaking of a market analysis that would be funded by the applicant or by the city? Because a city-funded one would be not inexpensive to do that type of analysis.
Okay, I'll continue to think, but those are my concerns, and I don't know what we do about it. But
Councilmember Samori.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Well, I think at this point in time, all the applicant is doing is requesting annexation.
Today, yeah.
Right.
And that's all.
They haven't asked for any help. They haven't. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Technically tonight, what you're doing is finding in statutory compliance with Colorado law related to annexation. The actual annexation process will start in early October.
Okay. I stand or sit corrected. So I don't think asking for a retail study is necessarily appropriate right now. And as Brad stated, it's up to them to determine whether it's feasible for them or not. I don't see it as a conflict between this or the mall. We know what our priorities is as a community. And if they deem that there's enough demand and they're willing to build it, they're taking the risk. We're not.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. First of all, when Councilmember Santos is absolutely on target with remembering how many times the council has seen this over the last really 4 years now. And Councilmember Bagley, I imagine that we could actually give you some market data. I remember one evening when I was council liaison to planning and zoning, maybe it was 2008, that there was a market study done by Arlene Tanawaga, I think her name is, with the same consultant that we used for First and Main, who was part of the team for First and Main that did some market analysis of the First and Main project. She also was the market analyst for the developer at that time. I don't remember the specific date of that planning and zoning meeting, but if you could get Councilmember Bagley that presentation from her, that will fill in some blanks for you. And, you know, the market has changed quite a bit from 2008, but that would give you a baseline. And I think in that they acknowledged that they're, at that point, you know, we were doing, you know, playing the first strains of the first dance with Panettone Development on Twin Peaks Mall. So they were absolutely aware the activity around the first iteration of site planning and conversations with Twin Peaks. So it still would be relevant, even though it's 4 years later. The one other question that I had that I picked up in the annexation paperwork for the petition was that it was to also include the right-of-way, which is Hover. So should the city be doing, and I did call and talk to, sorry Don, I couldn't get you when I called this afternoon, but I did talk to the city attorney's office and Dan about whether or not the city should be annexing Hover, or is it okay if the developer, because I hadn't actually seen a development application where they were asking to develop or asking to, in the petition, for the right-of-way also. So can you address that, please?
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Levison, we have annexed properties in the past with right-of-way that is not owned by the city of Longmont. It is allowed under the state statutes to occur. There are certain conditions in which you cannot use the right-of-way to annex a property, but this is not one of those situations. They have enough contiguity per the state statutes to meet the requirements, and it's our want to have that portion of Hover into the city of Longmont so that we can control the access and put up signals and things of that nature that will help this development and the rest of Hover Road as you head south with the traffic that can sometimes build up in that area.
And I guess I wasn't aware until looking at this paperwork, again, that section of Hofer was not already annexed into the city, and I just find it a bit curious because I remember discussing a CIP project for missing sidewalks, and one of the missing sidewalks was along that edge of Hover. So I guess we wouldn't be able to do a CIP on a right-of-way that we don't have control over right now. That's just incidental, but in any case, I think that this has met the statutory requirements. It was just something, an anomaly to see Hover Road being on the annexation, and we weren't petitioning for the street, but the developer was, so.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Don. So, it's been moved to second. Okay, all right, let's vote on that then. Yeah. Okay, that passes 7-0. Okay,
Mayor
next up.
Coombs, next item is item B, and West Lowry. Oh, no, it looks like Ken Houston is here to answer questions.
Councilmember Samori.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Hi, Ken. Hi. I guess I was just confused by the numbers and how they translate, because you got CBT at 10,000, going to 11,184, going to 13,158, because one share isn't really one share, or doesn't give you all the acre feet per share.
Yes, Mayor and Council Members Samori. We based on code, we base our cash in lieu off of the current market price of Colorado Big Thompson shares. One allotment unit in the Colorado Big Thompson project is equal to 0.76 of an acre foot per allotment unit. And so when you look at the price, the sales price of a unit of Colorado Big Thompson project, you divide that by 0.76, which brings it up to the actual cash in lieu, and the cash in lieu is based on acre foot. And so it's basically 10,000 divided by 0.76 gives you the $13,000 cash in lieu price that was recommended by by Water Board.
Okay, so and when somebody wants to annex a piece of land into the community, say they have an acre and they want to annex it into the community, they actually have to give 3 acre feet of land for that acre, 3 acre feet of water for that acre foot of land, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So that would add another $39,000 roughly to their cost.
The value of that water associated with that land is currently would be at about that. It's pretty rare that land doesn't have historical water. So when you annex your land, you're credited the historical water against that 3 acre foot per acre requirement. On the average, there's usually about 2 acre-feet of water per acre of land that's annexed, and so generally, there are some parcels that have no water, and there are some parcels that have sufficient water to completely meet the 3 acre-feet per acre. But I would say generally it's around 2 acre-feet. So more often than not, it's only about 1 acre-foot of water. And cash in lieu is kind of the market price based on CBT. Longmont also allows developers to bring non-historical water. There are certain water rights that they can go buy and dedicate instead of cash, which really honestly is what the city would prefer anyway. Generally that varies from 60 to 80% of the value of cash in lieu. So I would say, if you just, on the average, the general parcel land coming in would be probably about 60 to 80% of that 13,000. So, in the 9 to 11,000 range what it would cost to go get non-historical water. And generally that's what we get. We average less than, usually around a couple acre-feet a year in cash in lieu. And generally what the developer does is go out and buys the water rights until he gets almost right to exactly what he needs, and then he just uses the cash in lieu to kind of equal exactly 3 acre-feet, because he doesn't want to go buy a whole share. Some shares, they vary between usually 25 to 50 acre-feet per share, and so you don't want to get one share and and dedicate that much extra water.
So do we usually use that cash in lieu to buy water, or do we use it for other things?
We use it for acquisition of water. Currently, a lot of our cash in lieu is programmed for the Windy Gap firming project. So as we acquire capacity in that project, we occasionally, not too often, we occasionally will buy water in the right circumstance, and we would use that for that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. So they could give you water rights that were not CBT water rights?
Yes, Councilmember Finley, that is correct. We have a list, and it's actually in the code, of about a half a dozen water rights, local water rights that fit well within our water portfolio, and we have a kind of guiding water principles. We don't want to go outside the community and dry up the agricultural areas around the community, because it's part of a quality of life around here. We also don't allow developers to purchase water within the LPA, because that water needs to stay on the land that it's on, and so that when that land develops, it will have that water available. So it's a really limited situation, but a good example is Union Reservoir. That water, we've gotten a lot of. We acquired 50% of Union Reservoir in 1986 when we originally purchased it, but we're currently at 85%, and that difference between the 50% of the reservoir and the 85% we currently own was all water, non-historical water that was dedicated, because it didn't dry up any agriculture. It wasn't being used for agriculture purposes. It was being used for augmentation of agricultural wells, but it wasn't directly being used. Another example is Lake McIntosh. It originally used to irrigate some of the land on the Oligarchy Ditch in the east side of town and a little bit east of town, but Longmont kind of grew over that exchange area, so they weren't able to use it. So it's those types of non-historical waters that we accept, and generally that's what a developer will acquire and use for that dedication.
Yeah. Councilmember Samori.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I would move Resolution 2012-70.
Second.
All right, let's vote. Okay, that moves. That was passed 7-0.
Mayor Coombs, item E, Sandra Cedar was present to answer questions.
Mayor Coombs, members of council, also John Poynton from the school district is here in case you have some questions for him as well.
All right. Councilmember Levison.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge the item again. I know we had a little bit of a discussion, but could you step down to the podium, Mr. Poynton? And I see Paula Pierce is in the audience also. Yeah. So can you, it's in the body of our reading for this packet, but could you go over just again publicly the 4 points that the school district in their resolution calling the election highlighted as the reason for requesting the mill levy, which is a tax increase at this time?
If I may, Councilmember Levison, bring down a member of the campaign committee. I'm not a member of the campaign committee. I'd like to ask Paula Pierce to come down and respond in part to that question.
Good evening, Councilmember Levison. My name is Paula Pierce, 2017 Sundance Drive. I am a member of the campaign committee, Yes on 3A. I'm representing Grassroots St. Vrain, which is an organization that's contributing to the campaign effort. So your question specifically why the Board of Education decided to put a mill levy override on the ballot in 2012. My understanding is there's been 3 years of budget cuts at the state level that are amounting to $20 million exclusively for the St. Vrain Valley School District. What that has done is brought our per pupil funding levels to an amount that are lower now than they were in 2009. And in that time, our enrollment has gone up 7.8%. So there's been very drastic funding cuts that have come from the state level. Our Board of Education, I believe, has done everything they can to manage the lesser resources that are available. They have renegotiated some bonds to save money for the taxpayers. They have made close to $60 million in permanent cuts, most of that coming from the central administration area. There's currently 21 managers that work downtown in the district that manage a business that has close to 3,000 employees and close to 30,000 students. It's 2.9% of the total budget goes to central administration. That's a very efficient business model in any industry. So I believe the district has done everything that they can to manage these budget cuts and protect the classroom. They did not raise class sizes at the elementary level until this year, and they increased them by 1. Last year they increased them at the high school and middle school level, and then again this year they raised them 1. What that amounts to is I don't believe there's a single school in the district today that that does not have class sizes greater than 30. There have been no teacher layoffs per se, but there have been no replacements of teachers for attrition, which is leading to the increases in class sizes. So we're
and Paula, as a community member and a supporter of this initiative, one of the points was that the school board has in their ballot text was supporting early childhood education, preschool and kindergarten, and attracting, retaining teachers, and maintaining teacher positions in reasonable class sizes. As a community member, why is that? Why are those 3 points in particular important to you as a community member? And do you have children in the school district?
I do have children in the school district. I have 3 children. My oldest is a sophomore in high school, so I've been in this district for 10 years, and I've also seen the different steps through the district, elementary, middle, and high school. I think those 3 components that you mentioned are critical to funding the school district, because education, I cannot think of another industry as customized as education. Maybe medicine would be a good comparison. And a one-size-fits-all bulldozer approach to education just doesn't work anymore. It's a people business. You have to have people in the classroom, qualified teachers that know what they're doing, that know how to reach these kids, including using technology in the 21st century, we need to have the highest quality teachers that we can find, and get them in the classroom and give them the technology and the support and the resources they need to reach our kids and prepare our kids for the future.
Thank you. And John, can I ask you, the last point in the ballot language was upgrading technology to enhance student learning. Can you, from the district's perspective, can you tell me a little bit about how, what technology is these days for a tool in education, and you know, why is it important to upgrade the technology?
Because technology goes out of date quickly. It's as simple as that. We have tens of thousands of computers, whether they're laptops or iPads, document cameras. In addition to the wear and tear, they simply go out of date, and then they need to be replaced. And that's simply it. We have to continue that forward march in providing our students the highest level technology available, so that when they graduate from one level to the next or on to college, they're simply prepared. They have the tools and the know-how to feel very comfortable with the world the way it is now. It's an expectation in their world, and it's our duty to ensure that they have the skills, the resources to be successful.
Just as if you were, you know, if you don't update your home computer programs, if you're still working with, you know, Windows 1 as your document production system, you're sort of a dinosaur. If you're using those former versions and you're not keeping up, then what does that say about, you know, kind of marketable skills if you don't have? I mean, it does help contribute to marketing the skills of graduates and enabling them to be productive at higher levels of education, does it not?
Yes, it does. And it's a good, I think, to Paula's point about the customization. We are preparing hundreds of students every year to go to medical school, to engineering school, to all of these top-level professions, so that they can be successful and come back to their community and continue to be very competently involved in the economy and in their work. They need these skills. They need this technology.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll let others, you know.
John? Yeah, I guess the last item in the ballot text issue is expanding and enhancing early childhood education, preschool and kindergartners. Can you speak to some of the research on why that is so important and what that does for society?
I can briefly speak to it. I'm not an expert in that area, but I can tell you this, that a child that comes in to our system that's 3 months behind, and this is research that is commonly known across the nation, 3 months behind in reading or comprehension or vocabulary skills, never catches up. In most school systems in our nation, they never catch up. What we need to do is continue to intervene early and forcefully to ensure that those children do catch up and are able to compete with their peers and continue on and be successful. At every level in their education, we know what the costs are for students that don't keep up. They drop out. That costs us all, and it's the loss of human capital that we can no longer afford. Fortunately, right now our graduation rates in the traditional schools are about 90%, and we're doing very well nationally on that level, and we've got more to do. But to intercede at the earliest time in a child's life and provide them those extra additional resources that boost him or her up to be on par with their neighbor. That is the amazing work that our teachers are doing, and it changes the trajectory of their lives.
So those are like the most efficient types of education dollars you can spend. Of the upfront dollars, you get a bigger bang for the buck than other dollars perhaps.
That's correct, Mayor, and it's been a tradition in this town going back, especially with Mayor Piernak and her support of early intervention, the collaborations between the city of Longmont and the school district. There's a historic trend there, and fortunately, we can be very proud. Every elementary school in our district, every elementary school in Longmont has a powerful early childhood education program with highly qualified teachers. This is not daycare.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes, Mayor. I would like to, if there are no further comments, move Resolution 2012-73, urging citizens to vote yes on ballot issue 3A, supporting the school mill levy override.
Second.
All right, that's been moved in second. Let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0. Thank you, John.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Next item of business is Longmont General Improvement District Number 1. And once you recess as the City Council, the board will be considering a revocable permit for use of a portion of the 500 East parking lot adjacent to 515 Kimbark.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you. I would move that we recess as the Longmont City Council and convene as the Board of Directors of the Longmont General Improvement District Number 1.
All right, let's vote. Okay, that passes 7-0.
Good evening, Mayor Coombs, and in this case, members of the Board of Directors of Longmont General Improvement District Number 1. My name is Nick Wolfram. I'm the Engineering Services Manager. This evening, we have a request for a revocable permit for a use of a portion of the 500 East parking lot adjacent to 515 Kimbark Street. And in conjunction with the alley improvements that are ongoing, particularly if you walk up the section of the 500 block alley, which is now open, construction still going on, you'll notice that a lot of the property owners in that area are doing improvements to tie in their properties to the new improvements that are going in as part of the alleyscape. In this case, the 515 Kimbark property building is doing the same thing, and if we could flash to Google Earth here. And you can see this is 515 Kimbark Street. This is the 500 block, 500 East parking lot. The entrance to the building is right here, and the property owner is going to be doing some improvements to the building, a new entrance, a vestibule type entrance, and in this case also you can see right here where this is currently hashed out to facilitate the entrance of the building. They're going to be doing, according to their plan, brick pavers similar to those used, or just like those used in the alley, to create that entrance. So this revocable use of permit will simply allow them to utilize that portion of this parking lot, which is currently used as that entrance, for those, to install those pavers. They'll maintain that. If this was city-owned property, this would actually be a use of public places permit that's done through the city clerk's office in an administrative process. But since this land is owned by the GID, the General Improvement District, we had to bring this to you this evening. And that's that. We also showed, included in your packet, are the plans, and you can see here, this is the building, this is the lower section of the plans, the parking lot out here, the parking spaces, and you can see that where they'll be laying those brick pavers out there to create that entryway in there. While we've indicated it's using one parking space, as you saw in the aerial, it's already hashed out, so the resultant is not a net loss in parking in there, simply the use of that. John Caldwell is the owner of the building. Mr. Caldwell is here this evening. Kimberly McKee is here from the LDDA. The LDDA board did review this earlier, and their minutes are attached, and they recommended approval to the GID board. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Anybody got any questions? Councilmember Witt?
I would like to move item 9E. Option one.
Option one.
Option one.
Yeah, 11A1. Okay, let's vote. That passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Just like, I think we all voted on 11A2, right?
Yeah.
Just correcting the motion.
Okay.
Post motion, I would like, I move that we amend it to
Right.
11A2, but I think we all got it.
Got it. Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that we adjourn as the Board of Directors of the Longmont General Improvement District Number 1 and reconvene as the Longmont City Council.
All right, let's vote. Okay, we're back in regular session.
And your next item is the presentation of issues in the 2013 proposed budget, and Teresa Malloy will make the opening remarks.
Okay, Mayor Coombs and City Council, good evening. I'm Teresa Malloy, the city's budget manager. And this evening, what we have on tap for you tonight is HR is going to talk to you about our compensation and pay plan, as well as our employee benefits. And then Jim Golden is going to talk about our pension plans and some future challenges that we'll be facing in the general fund. And as Valerie mentioned, you have some budget information at your desk this evening. It really is just the packet information for those of you who have a printed budget document. We would request that you put that in the back of your binder under the supplemental information, should we need to refer back to that at some future discussion. So I'm going to turn it over then to, yes, that, correct. So I'm going to turn it over to Bobby King to kick us off this evening.
Good evening, Mayor Coombs and members of City Council. Bobby King, Chief Human Resources Officer for the city. Proud to serve you, our employees, and the citizens of Longmont. This evening, Lauren Chavez, our compensation specialist, and Vincent Pasquelli, our benefit administrator, will make a presentation regarding our employee compensation plan for the pay plan for 2013 and health benefits regarding 2013. Lauren?
Mayor Coombs, members of council, I'm Lauren Chavez. I'm here tonight to discuss the 2013 proposed pay plan and answer any questions that you might have. Tonight, we're here to provide you with information in regard to compensation, including survey use, benchmarking, the city's current market position, and our recommendations for 2013. The city participates and utilizes survey data from Mountain States Employers Council and also one large survey from the Colorado Municipal League. These various surveys we have found to provide adequate survey data from our comparison market, including both public and private employers in the Boulder, Denver, and northern Colorado areas. Due to our increasing recruiting challenges for particular industries that are becoming apparent, HR staff is continually seeking out valid surveys to assist in meeting the challenges of recruiting and retaining a quality workforce. The APPA survey was added this year in an effort to provide more comprehensive data to meet the recruiting challenges we've been experiencing recently with professional and management positions in electric utility. The city's benchmarking percentage has increased over the last few years. Annual participation in roundtable discussions that we have at both CML and Mountain States with other compensation specialists across numerous Colorado cities and counties enables us to add common positions to the survey, and also to ensure that we're using reliable, accurate data. Data from a survey that we did back in 2011 indicated that on average our comparison groups were benchmarking about 53.3% of their positions. In that year, we benchmarked 63% of our positions, and for this 2013 pay plan, we've benchmarked 68%. Survey data allows us to compare between two different comparison points, market average and market salary, market range and market salary. Market range is the average pay range midpoint for our comparison group, and staff uses market range to determine recommendations for pay range adjustments. This top graph is displaying how our pay ranges by job family and citywide compare to market pay ranges for the last 5 years. And as you can see, on average, our ranges are 0.5% below our defined labor market for 2012. Market salary, which is represented in the bottom graph, is the average actual salary of our comparison group. Market salary is used by staff to make recommendations for salary increases and increases for step positions. On average, our market salary is 0.1% above market for 2012. In establishing pay ranges for the coming year, in addition to our current market standing, we also look at projections from our comparison groups. This data indicates that the projected average range movement will be 1.7%, and the projected average salary increase will be 2.6%. As I mentioned, we compare to cities and counties along the Front Range, as well as private employers in the Boulder, Denver, Northern Colorado areas. Our comparison group covers about 95% of the city's benchmark position in terms of providing adequate job descriptions and compensation comparisons. Based on the data collected this year, HR staff is recommending a 1% adjustment to pay ranges to stay competitive in regards to recruitment and retention. In lieu of a merit increase, we are recommending a 1% increase to base salary for those employees in open range positions that are at or above market range. For those employees that are below market range, we are recommending the use of the Move to Market matrix. This was implemented last year in an effort to move employees closer to a market midpoint over a period of 1 to 3 years. When we implemented the matrix last year, there were about 235 employees that were under market. We attributed that mostly to the 0% increase in 2010 and the 1% increase in 2011. Using the matrix last year resulted in a decrease to 196 employees below pay range in 2013, or going into 2013. So implementing both recommendations A and B would position the city at roughly 95.5% of market salary. This Move to Market matrix is in your proposed pay plan on page 7.
Can I interrupt you for a question?
Sure.
Councilmember Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. Can we go back one?
Yes.
That's fine. So those that are below market that aren't getting the 1%, what's the average percentage that those folks are going to get? The 2.6?
Well, the majority of those 196 employees that are below market are positioned here in the shaded blue area. So the increase would range from 2.25% to 3% for about 80% of those 196 employees that are below.
So what's the high in percentage to bring to market rate? What's the highest percentage?
For those, for that 80% would be 3%.
No, I mean, okay, so I mean overall. I guess I'm not asking my question. So overall, those folks that are under market rate, what is the very high, the highest percentage of increase that we're going to be giving to bring them up to market?
Wouldn't that depend on how much below they are?
Yes, it depends on the market matrix, and this shows where they are in market, and then there's their rating for their 2012 CPP. So there are very few employees that are on the outside of that. Like I said, most of them are in that shaded blue area. There are some that fall in the 90 to 94.99%, and could be at exceeds, and that would be a 7% increase. The problem is we're using last year's ratings to kind of project this, whereas before we give the raises, we will have 2012 ratings.
So according to this diagram, if someone was, say, 10% under market and they had an exceeds, they would get somewhere between an 8.25% and a 10% raise. Is that correct?
Actually, the way the matrix is set up is that if they are under market, they will not get an increase that brings them above market. Unless that increase is less than 1%, then they would be given 1%. So they're not going to exceed bringing them to 100% of market.
Right. So if they're 10% under market, you might bring them up 7%.
Right. Right, depending on the matrix. Right. That's correct.
So basically, the numbers that they have today are indicating that if you took the position that was actually the furthest behind, the numbers are indicating that it's in the neighborhood of 7%. Based on last year's numbers, correct?
I believe so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Combs. At the risk of just getting run out of the room on a rail, I guess I'm having a hard time given this discussion. I'm not a very good politician, but I'm sitting here thinking, I guess I have a hard time when we're talking about 196 people and blanketly giving them increases to get them up to market, because I don't care what the organization is, whether it's the City of Longmont, Fortune 500 company, my practice. People deserve raises based on specific performance. And so right now we had a discussion, about Attorney Eugene May. And don't want to go into details, but the thing is, if someone deserves a raise, we should give them a raise. But just because they're doing their job and they're part of the mass, is there any way, what are we doing as a city to make sure that the people that deserve the raises are getting the raises and those that don't are not invited to stay with us? Because I have a hard time believing that 196 people all deserve a substantial increase in salary. So that is my concern as we're having this discussion. I'm sitting here in the back of my mind thinking we shouldn't be talking this way, because I just think that this is just basically I just think it's the wrong way to be thinking about how we compensate the right or wrong people. So, am I thinking wrong? Hand on the buzzer, Bob King.
So Mayor Coombs and Councilmember Bagley, our current philosophy says we'll move people close to market if physically possible. So that's our current philosophy. So we're bound by that. And the matrix basically is performance-based. It looks at where you are in the range compared to market, which is also our philosophy, and your performance. So we are rewarding performance based upon the market and where your market range is currently. So those two factors are taken into consideration based upon our current philosophy.
Just to restate, so what you're saying is that the people we do have belong there, and since they're there, they deserve to be at market.
Exactly.
Okay.
Councilmember Santos, if I can add to
Oh,
that,
go
they
ahead.
have to perform in order to get that increase. If there's non-performance, then they do not get the increase. But part of what you talked about is also a philosophical position that is embedded in the policy in terms of how we deal with these issues. And as we look at the entire organization, this, along with pretty much everything else in the organization, is something that we're going to review.
So, thank you.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. So what's the average salary for a non-director?
Question again, please.
What's the average salary for a non-director?
Mayor Coombs and Mayor Pro Tem Santos, I think the average salary for a non-director is somewhere around $60,000. Just rough guess.
Jim? Jim has a look on his face like, no. All employees, non-directors.
I think Jim thinks I'm a little high, so I'll let him answer that question.
You know, Mayor Coombs, members of council, I don't think we can answer that off the cuff, but I can tell you that's probably too high.
Probably too high? So, but it's under 60.
I would believe it is. But we can get you that information.
I'm just curious, I'd like to know what it might be good for us to understand what the average salary is for non-directors, and then know what the average salary for directors and so forth.
Yeah, and I just don't think we can answer that without checking the data.
No, that's fine. And if you need to get it, and I probably should have called earlier, but that's some information I'd like to know. But if it's below 60, that's I kind of guessed it was a little. I was thinking it was a little bit higher, but apparently I was wrong.
Again, we'll gather that data, but my number was fully burdened with benefits loaded into it as far as the 60. We'll gather more specific data for you going forward.
Great.
Councilmember Levison?
And can you just confirm what I'm thinking is that part of this move to market philosophy is a retention philosophy also, because if someone's getting paid, if they're performing and exceeding, not just fully performing, but exceeding, then someone's going to snap them up and pay them more money because they're a great employee and they're motivated. So is this really part of a retention policy so we can keep our best people?
Mayor Coombs and Councilmember Levison, it's really about attracting and retaining the best talent and being market competitive in terms of salary.
I mean, because these days a lot of people are looking at the bottom line, that if they can be compensated for the same position. And what I read in the information is that when we look at the benchmarking, we actually compare duties and responsibilities, and we've done a lot of cross-training of employees now and other things. So when you add in maybe somebody that's cross-trained in a couple of different areas does not fit just simply one little box of a category anymore, because they've worked for additional skills and maybe some professional development that's added new capabilities into their job, the spectrum of services they offer in their job. Is that correct?
Mayor Coombs and Councilmember Levison, a lot of organizations have cross-trained and done skill-based training as well to ensure that employees have multiple skill sets to bring.
You're comparing that at the same. You're doing all those comparisons in this benchmarking and matrixing also.
We are comparing like skills to like jobs in the marketplace, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I'm not going to beat this horse any further because it's dead and it's not moving. I guess as you made the comment, Harold, that you said that you're going to be reviewing and looking. I guess I'm just thinking of the typical organization, and you've got 10 to 30% of the people that do most of the work. And I don't work with city staff, but I'm assuming you guys are like every other organization I've worked with, at which point I would actually resent, if I was in the top 10%, I would resent getting paid what the other person who I feel isn't performing at my level gets paid. And so, I would like to see city staff and city council reassess how we compensate. Now, it's fair. In theory, I see what we're doing on the market rate. That I'm not saying to necessarily change it per se. I'm just saying that there's got to be something that, I mean, I think we might be, we're attracting new people, and we're keeping the ones perhaps that, I don't want to say mediocre because that word's insulting. I guess I'm just worried that we might be offending the leaders. We might be offending those who really just overachieve. And I don't see in this matrix how we would be able to look at someone who really overachieves and says, we need to pay you top dollar. It just looks like an even playing field. Or am I missing something?
Those are actually very good points. I think one of the things that you find in any organization, and I can speak to my past life where we had that very issue, where there were folks that literally said, I am doing X amount of work, and they were overachievers, and why am I on the same playing field? And so, if you look at the data behind compensation, a lot of times a number of studies will say compensation is not a motivator, but it can demotivate an organization very quickly. And so you have to be very cognizant of that as you're moving through these processes. One of the things that we need to look at as an organization is also when you talk about recruitment and retention, there are other aspects of that discussion that go beyond compensation. It goes into, do you encourage the organization to be creative? Do you encourage folks in the organization to be entrepreneurs? And so those are some things that we want to build in to this process is to really create an atmosphere that when you move through it, there are a number of things that actually go into what motivate someone to stay with an organization or want to come to work with an organization. So those are the type of issues that we're trying to bring in. But I think we have to be very careful with that because you will demotivate folks very quickly, and that can also cause a pull away from the organization. And so those are some things that we have to look at. And then you get into, well, how do you look at internal equity? How do you look at external equity? And there are a number of variables that have to come in play. And I think those are discussions that we need to have as an organization and really look at everything as we're moving through this process.
I guess this is just one of Seven's thought on the issue. I'd like to see a move to market matrix that's more of an average. Instead of everybody at market level, the question is, as an organization, is the average at market level? Meaning that someone who's really overachieving balances out someone who's newer, lesser experience. And so that way we say, yeah, we're at market level, but we're also taking into account the various expertise, talents, and just the hard work that a variety of people put into their jobs. So that's not direction. That's just Brian Bagley's 2 cents.
Well, and to kind of add my perspective to it, most organizations, when you really look at performance, and to a certain extent, it does tie to compensation, you can really apply the bell curve to the process in terms of what you're looking at, in the sense that you have high performers, you have low performers, and then you have the majority of the organization, in this area, both high performing and leaning toward low performing. And I think those are areas that you just have to be cognizant of. Because the data that I've seen is that most organizations tend to look fairly typical in that process. And that's actually a discussion that we have started in terms of how do we look at this and how do we really look at the evaluation process and what we're putting in and how are we evaluating folks. And so I think there's just some discussions that we have to have as we continue moving forward. That would be, my recommendation to the council in terms of looking at this area and looking at compensation.
Councilmember Levison.
But Councilmember Bagley, if you look at the matrix here, look at someone who's fully performing, whose job is in that center section there. Their pay range, their pay is 90 to 94.99% of what the market is, and they're not going to get an increase that even brings them, close within 1 or 2% of market unless they're fully performing at the top end of the percentage increase they could get, which would be 5%. So somebody that's fully performing, doing a great job, and they're at 90%, the most they could achieve would be 95% of market rate. Now, if you're a superstar and you're exceeding or you're outstanding, you're still only going to make it at the top, being compensated 9% more. You're still going to be 1% below market, and even if you're compensated at 9%, you're not going to be, according to what we have in our packet, more than 1% over. So there's already kind of these stopgap measures in there. If you add up the numbers with the way you're talking, if someone needs improvement and that's what their job performance says, they're not going to get an increase at all. And that's what the matrix indicates all the way down. And the increases ramp up as you look at the performance level of an individual employee. And I imagine that, the supervisors who do those reviews are not going to be, they want to encourage people, but they're not going to be overcompensating somebody knowing full well the dynamics in their departments or their divisions. So, having, worked in a situation early on in my career where I worked for the county and they did one of these market matrices, they doubled my salary one year because I was making so little money compared to market.
Case in point.
And I was an excellent employee. So, but basically the county had not done a market study in a long time and realized they were undercompensating people so radically that they couldn't keep anybody and couldn't keep anybody for the future. So again, you might get the most mediocre employees when you're paying the least amount as well.
Just another point, Mayor Coombs and Councilman Bagley. In terms of your point regarding moving toward market, again, our salaries are 100.1% average to the market, so we're on that sweet spot. In terms of market ranges, we're at 99.5%, so we're right there in the middle on average for market penetration range and also average actual salary. So to your point, we're at those two spots, 99.5 and 100.1%.
If I can add one more point to the discussion, I think one of the issues that you get into is that if you have an employee at market today, and they're in the outstanding category, and they're at or above market, they're going to get a 1%. If you have somebody that's fully performing but below the market, they can get up to 2.5%. And that's part of the process. Now, obviously, when you get into these discussions, you have to balance resources with the process that we have in place. And I think that is what we're talking about that we really need to look at and fine-tune, because that's the issue that you have to be really careful with, because over time, if it continues to perpetuate itself, then that's where you tend to see the issues develop in terms of animosity being created in the organization, in terms of how people are being compensated and what that increase means. And those are some areas that we're really going to have to look into.
Thank you. You can go ahead with your presentation.
Okay, I'll continue with the recommendations that we're making. For 2013, those positions that are covered by the police collective bargaining agreement will receive a 1.25 increase in pay. Open range positions covered under that same agreement will also be subject to the move to market matrix, as well as the 1% increase to ranges. Positions that are under the fire collective bargaining agreement are going to receive an adjustment from 0.32% to 4.79%, or an average of 2.41%. Essentially, what we're doing with fire is moving those employees to 2012 market salaries. We're also recommending that the step positions in Longmont Power and Communications be increased 1% to stay competitive with our existing labor market for those positions. HR staff is also recommending the reclassification of 13 positions because we have identified those positions as being significantly below market, at least for 12 of those. And then lastly, to stay in compliance with the state of Colorado minimum wage, we're adjusting our temp range minimums from $7.64 an hour to $7.78 per hour. Any other questions before Vincent comes up to talk about benefits?
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Could you go back one slide?
Sure.
Just out of curiosity. Just what is the difference? What is open range positions?
Open range positions are the positions that have a minimum and a maximum, whereas step positions have one salary for each step. Some step positions only have one salary, where others may have four.
What's an example of a step position?
A step position would be a police officer that starts at step 1, moves through to step 4. And it's the market that dictates if we have those positions as open range or step positions. So throughout the industry, police and fire positions are generally step positions.
Okay, and could you, the 2.41% average increase, for what is IAFF? What's the difference here between the FOP collective bargaining agreement? What are the differences there?
You want to address
That's what I mean. So what's, I mean, I know the fraternal order police, but then what's the IAFF?
Oh.
That's the firefighters?
International Association
Okay,
of Firefighters, yes.
And then can you go
Sorry
forward
about
one?
that.
That's all right. I'm just still trying to get my hands around acronyms. Let's see here. What was the other question I had? And then why the difference from the 764 minimum wage difference to the 778?
It's state law, and the new minimum wage has not come out for 2013, but it's based on consumer price index.
So you're anticipating that it's going to
Yes,
get
and
778. Okay.
because the report comes out in mid-August with the consumer price index, and that's how we determine next year's minimum wage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, seeing no other questions, thank you very much.
Sure.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Vincent Pascali. I am the Benefits Administrator for the city, and this evening I'd like to review with you a number of health benefit topics as they impact us for the coming year. And this would include our medical plans, the renewal for 2013, also with our dental and vision plans, the health benefit RFPs that we have sent out over the past year, to make sure that we are market competitive in price and in plan provisions, and also items of healthcare reform that are going to be coming down the road beginning next year. With last year, we put the medical plan out to bid and obtained a 0% increase for 2012 and a maximum rate cap increase of 7% for 2013. Thanks to favorable claims experience during 2012, our 2013 renewal has come in at less than 7%, and that is 4.9% for the HMO and 5.4% for the triple option. Taken together as a blended rate over the whole, the blended rate is actually an increase of roughly approximately 5.06%. And these figures are considerably less than the industry projections for 2012, which stand at approximately 10% according to the Siegel Company Health Trend surveys. And consequently, the city's cost for 2013 is estimated to increase to $7.15 million, which is approximately $345,000 over 2012, but less than the $476,700 that we could have anticipated with a full 7% increase for 2013. And finally, these projections assume continuation of our current enrollment distribution between tiers of coverage and also between HMO and triple option participation. During the past 6-7 years since Kaiser has become our sole carrier, our annual renewals increases for 2008 and later have been substantially lower than the industry average of just over 10%, 10.03%. HMO over this period, 2008 to 13, has averaged 3.25% per year. Triple option has averaged at 3.33% per year, and if you blend the two programs and average their aggregate increases over the span since 2008. The increase has been approximately 3.28%. And you can see here in this graph, the industry trends are depicted with the red bar in the middle. HMO is green and triple option is blue. For 2009, 2010, and 2012, we had no increase at all in either program for those 3 years. With regard to the health and dental funds that actually fund the program, city contributions are set as a percentage of payroll. In 2012, the budgeted contributions were 13.8% to the Health Benefits Fund and 0.7% to the Dental Benefits Trust. That's used to fund our self-funded dental program. In 2013, proposed budget includes contributions at 15% to the Health Benefits Fund and still 0.7% to the Dental Benefits Trust. The increase to the Health Benefits Fund covers the increase from Kaiser plus current level of costs that exceed current contribution levels. So it's a issue of contingency. And the combined 15.7% contribution rate between the medical and the dental plans both are still lower than the peak level that we saw in 2005 and 2006, which hit 17.5%. With regard to other health benefits that we have, dental and vision, both of these programs right now are out to bid. We're in the final stages of negotiating premiums and contract terms. For the dental plan, we actually expect a reduction in costs due to the implementation use of dental networks, which we are currently not taking advantage of, that will contract with providers for lower fees. And in addition, we are looking at the possibility of moving to a fully insured model from our current self-funded model, which will actually even give us a reduction in premium cost and fully insulate the city against excess cost. Under the Vision Care Plan, this is also out to bid, and we're in the final process of negotiations, but to this point, we don't see the possibility or threat of a premium increase for 2013. So that's good news, too. With regard to the RFPs, since 2011, we've actually put out all of our health programs to bid to the market. And we've gotten, I think, some very, very good results. Medical, we had resulting in continued and stable premiums. Life, accidental death, and long-term disability actually resulted in an annual savings to the city of $65,000, and we were able to move our long-term disability program from a partially self-funded program to fully insured, thereby further insulating the city against excess costs. Flexible spending accounts for health care and dependent care reimbursement also went out to bid. We received no increase in administrative fees there. As I said, with dental, we're in progress and expect some savings. And vision, we expect to remain stable once we have that RFP concluded. And finally, I'd like to mention that all of the bids or RFPs were distributed via the city's procurement channels and to the Longmont Chamber of Commerce to help facilitate participation by local vendors. Finally, healthcare reform will impact us increasingly over the next few years. And in 2013, we will see the implementation of an annual participation fee, which we will have to pay for $1 per participant, and that's per participant, not per employee. So that would include employees plus dependents. We have approximately 1,950 total healthcare members, so our fee next year will be approximately 1,950. Beginning in 2014 and through 2019, that fee will double to $2 per participant, and assuming, of course, a stable participation base, that would increase to $3,900 per year. Healthcare reimbursement, FSA, the maximum contribution that we have today is $4,000. That is going to be reduced to $2,500 in compliance with healthcare reform. And also, we will be producing in 2013 W-2s for employees that will include medical benefit costs on their W-2. They're not going to be charged for it, but the federal government wants to see what that cost is. In 2014, a number of other things come into effect, and each one of these, I have to say, is still awaiting clarification through federal regulation from the Center for Medicare Services. And these include automatic enrollment, which means you would simply automatically enroll new employees for coverage. You would not wait for them to make an election.
Can I ask you just a quick question, Vince?
Yes, sir.
On this annual benefit expense included in the employee W-2 in 2013. So is that the W-2 in early 2013 that's actually for the year 2012? Is that what we're talking about?
Mayor Combs, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
In addition, we'll have the individual mandate that comes in that requires people to purchase health care. The establishment of health care exchanges, those will be the vehicles that people can use to find suitable health care. And then finally, coverage for all employees working over 30 hours a week. This would include groups of employees that are not currently eligible for benefits, including temporaries and seasonals. So that's coming as well. And then finally, the other major thing will come into effect in 2018, and that is an excise tax on what they call Cadillac plans, whose premiums exceed, and the definition of a Cadillac plan is based on premium that's actually charged for the plans. And that would be $10,200 a year for single coverage and $27,500 a year for family coverage. Now, right now, we've got a ways to go before we hit those levels. But I was at a conference last month, and one of the speakers was saying that just about everybody at some point in time is going to be impacted by the Cadillac tax, even though we're not quite right now.
If I can jump in, the one area that we're looking at today that we're going to have to continue examining is the under 2014, the coverage for all employees working over 30 hours a week. Currently, in terms of how we utilize temporary employees, we may have a temporary employee that works 20 hours in one area and 20 hours in another. It doesn't distinguish between Department X and Department Y. It's organization. And so we are currently trying to wrap our hands around all of this information to determine what that cost may be for us in the future. But out of all of those, I think that's the one that's the most pressing for us as we speak.
Thank you, Harry.
So, Mayor Coombs and Council, any other questions for myself, Vincent or Lori?
Councilmember Witt.
Thank you, Mayor. I heard a presentation today talking about the Affordable Care Act, and one of the numbers that was thrown around was the thought that insurance premiums may increase by 19%, and that's a low figure. Have you heard any estimates on how much insurance premiums may increase?
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Witt, we've heard the same number, double digits, with this 19%, but it's been double digits.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, we've managed to be well below those double-digit increases over the past 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that's based upon the fact that companies have to invest in information infrastructure as part of their ongoing costs, if they haven't already.
Okay.
It looks to me like by Vincent's presentation that going out to bid for the employee benefits is always a great thing and keeps us very competitive. So I think we should continue to try to do that as much as possible each year.
Mayor Coombs and Mayor Council, just one caveat to that. The higher the frequency, the less likelihood folks are to send you a bid forward. So sometimes the frequency doesn't help us as far as getting competitive bids. It's been our history.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. So are we going to be looking at, when it comes up again, for longer term deals instead of every two years or every 1 year?
So, Mayor Coombs, Mayor Pro Tem Santos, always looking for longer-term deals, but it looks like the market is kind of hedged on 2 years at a time versus longer-term deals. But we'll pursue the best options possible to give us the best cost and best coverage for our employees.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Levison.
There was some pretty rigorous discussion the past couple of years around the health insurance plan and the options available for employees. What's the cost differential for being Kaiser or the triple option plan? Has that increased in size in this next go around than it was last year?
Okay. Mayor Coombs, Mayor, Councilmember Levison, evidence to answer that question.
I bet you could have guessed somebody was going to ask that question.
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Levison. The cost, the only two premiums that I can actually remember in my head are for individual coverage, and they are the HMO is approximately $335 a month, and the triple option is approximately $421 per month, give or take some change. That relationship has actually stayed very, very constant over the past few years because our premium increases have been the same for both programs up until this year, and that's a very, very slight differential of about, I think, a half a percentage point. So that relationship remains stable.
And people still have that option if they don't want to do Kaiser. They have a reasonable option that's not extraordinarily large cost differential. I mean, it's about, it's less than $100 a month. So if you wanted that choice of having, local hospital, local Longmont Clinic, Longmont Hospital, we still have that's not priced out of the market.
No, that's not priced out of the market at all. The triple option's got 3 different tiers. So you can use the tier 1 as the HMO. Tier 2 is a network that is a little bit broader than the HMO, but tier 3 is an open-ended network that allows you to use any provider at all.
So that gives you the maximum amount of choice. If you're looking for, choice of going anywhere to any facility, that gives you that freedom if you want to do that choice.
It does.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I had the fortunate opportunity, as I was considering running for council, to sit in on a few meetings. And the first exposure I really had to city council was the whole health insurance debacle, struggle, if you will. So my question is, when does that come up for renewal, and when will we expect to see that issue resurface? That's the first question. Should I pause there?
Sure.
I just want to put it on my calendar.
So, Mayor Coombs, Councilman Bagley, we begin to look at that process the first quarter of next year, and we've actually been looking at that process all this year as far as getting ahead of that. So we have more time to look at options and costs in terms of benefits and plans for our employees. So we're not waiting until first quarter of 2013.
That was really my only question, Mr. King. Thank you.
Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I would also like to encourage our staff to work with our local hospital and getting them involved in some manner in this process, and perhaps look at some kind of self-funding on health insurance as well.
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Finley, we're always looking at all kinds of options. Our intent is not to exclude anyone in this process. And Mitch and I talk quite regularly in terms of that. Okay.
I think part of, as you look at just healthcare in general, I think it's important to keep all options on the table as you see how dynamic that environment is today. We have talked about self-insurance models and what that looks like, and really looking back at experience to understand why we made the shift and what was happening with the numbers. And so they're in the process of getting that information, and we have started the discussions. But again, I think the environment's dynamic, and as we move into next year, things may change again in terms of what we're seeing in the market conditions. But we're open to look at everything.
And I think we need to be creative.
Well, thank you, Bobby. You did a great job.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
We might be a good time to take a Tim? Well, yeah. Let's take a 10-minute break. Yeah.
We've been here since 5:30.
Okay, Mayor Coombs, members of council, I'm Jim Golden, Director of Finance. We're going to continue along in the area of benefits by talking about our pension plans. So the city has, Valerie, could you pull that up, please? The city has 6 pension plans that we administer. There's 3 defined contribution plans and 3 defined benefit plans. So the defined contribution plans are like 401ks. So the city contributes a percentage of pay to each, and then there's no change in 2013 in that percentage. So our commitment is only the contribution. Those 3 plans cover police, fire, and general employees. We also have 3 defined benefit plans, and I'm going to spend a little bit more time covering their status. So first off, we have 2 old hire pension plans. One is for police and one is for fire. They're closed plans, as employees had to join a statewide defined contribution plan. Now it's actually our own defined contribution plan, but they had to do that as of April of 1977. So anyone hired subsequent to that time is in those new hire defined contribution plans. So what we do have now are a dozen participants in each of these 2 plans. Only one of them is an active employee, and that's in the fire plan. So we have actuarial studies performed annually on each of these defined benefit plans. And at beginning of this year, 1/1/12, the old hire fire plan had a negative unfunded accrued liability, which is a surplus, and that was $90,000. And the old hire police plan had a negative unfunded accrued liability of $268,000. The status of both plans dropped a bit in 2011 due to investment returns. So the old hire fire plan is considered to be 103.2% funded, and the old hire police plan is 117.7% funded. Neither of these plans has had a benefit enhancement added to the plan itself since the passage of Tabor in 1992. Since those enhancements are considered to be a new multiple-year fiscal obligation of the city, and those cannot be added under Tabor without a vote. So the exception to that requirement is that enhancements can be added if the plans are fully funded strongly enough to allow for the benefit enhancements to be added and still keep the plan as fully funded. So if we added those enhancements in and these numbers were still 100% or greater, then they could be added. And those currently, with the enhancements we have in place currently, cannot fit in here. So beginning in 1996, the council approved benefit enhancements outside of the plan. Essentially, those are amounts that are paid directly out of the city's general fund as opposed to being from these separate retirement funds. We've had 5 benefit enhancements that have been made outside of the plan, and each of those have been about 3 to 4 years apart, paid out of the general fund. Last of those was made in 2009. Since these enhancements are not multiple-year commitments by the city, they got to be considered for approval by the city council in each annual budget, and then they are subject to annual appropriation. So we continue to fund our plans, these 2 plans, at a significant level in an attempt to strengthen the funding status of the 2 plans so that the benefit enhancement can eventually be added to the plans without reducing the funded status below 100%. Performance of our investments need to also exceed 7.5%, which is our assumption for us to be able to increase these percentages over time. The total funding for these 2 old hire plans from the general fund in 2012 was $201,108, and this amount covers the cost of the benefit enhancements and then the intended boost to the funding status of these plans. Staff costed out a benefit enhancement for these 2 plans for 2013. We used the same methodology that has been used in the past, which is a 1% per year increase since the last increase. So effectively, that would be a 4% increase. To add such an enhancement for 2013 would cost $11,369 in the fire plan and $8,955 annually in the police plan. So combined with the cost of the earlier enhancements, that would bring the total enhancement cost to $48,723 for the fire plan, $42,711 for the police plan. So for quite some time now, we've allocated from the general fund the same total dollar funding of the $201,000 to these two plans, and we vary the amount of the allocation based on their respective actuarial status. So we're proposing to provide this new benefit enhancement in 2013 without increasing the funding any further to the plan. So it still costs the general fund $201,000 as it did in 2012. So instead, we'll simply have less dollars directed to trying to bring these two plans to an overfunded status where the enhancements can instead be added to the plan. Questions on the old higher pension plans? Okay, then I'm going to move then to the general employees retirement plan. This one's also a defined defined benefit pension plan, and it's for our non-uniform general employees. We also have a defined contribution plan that our general employees are provided in lieu of Social Security. So within your communication on page S66, I gave you some history on the contributions to this plan, as well as the funding status of this plan. I'm not going to go through those here. This past month, the pension board received the 2012 actuarial study, and the actuarial required contribution is now 11.6%. while the funded ratio dropped from 95.9% to 94.1%. In order to meet the 0.4% increase in contributions, the proposed budget includes an additional 0.2% contribution from the city and a 0.2% contribution from employees, making the total required contributions in 2013 6.3% city and 5.3% for employees. The Longmont defined benefit plan is still considered to be extremely well funded for a public defined benefit plan at 94.1% funding. In the summer of 2011, the General Employees Retirement Plan Board did recognize the concerns that exist across the country regarding controlling the cost of public employee benefits. So not only was there a desire to keep the contribution costs under control, but it was also important that we raise the funded ratio above 100% so that the historical practice of periodically adding an ad hoc modest cost of living increase to the plan could be continued in the future. The last increase was in 2009, and it remains to be seen when the next could be afforded. The GERP board at that time recommended changes to the plan that were designed to, over time, keep those contribution costs under control, raise the funded ratio above 100%, and then resume the ad hoc cost of living increases. The changes to the plan design were for new employees only at the beginning of 2012, and those changes were that the minimum age for early retirement went from age 55 to age 60. The early retirement reduction factor for those employees changed from 3% to 6% per year for reduced early retirements. And then those new employees also would only be subject to a contribution requirement of always 1% less than the employees hired previous to 2012. So that 1% difference for them is instead directed to their employees' defined contribution plan accounts. So they have that advantage that they have a 6% contribution to that plan, while other employees hired prior to 2012 have a 5% contribution. So changes to the The GURP contribution requirements for next year will require amendments to be approved by the council as well as the GURP board. So we're going to return to the council with those necessary ordinance during the fourth quarter of this year. Questions on the general employees retirement plan?
Councilmember Samori.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Jim, could you go back to the last slide? So when you say it's 94.1% funded, what does that mean in dollars?
In dollars?
Yeah.
As far as how much of a difference?
How much is in there?
This plan has assets of over $100 million.
Okay.
I have to get you. I've got some information here, but I don't think I have the answer to that question. So I'd have to get that back to you as far as what the unfunded accrued liability is there.
Okay, because I mean, it's nice to hear the percentages, but they don't really mean anything if we don't understand the numbers behind them.
Right. I will get that for you. I'm just checking to make sure it's not in here. Don't see it, but I'll get it for you. The unfunded liability.
And so what you're saying is that any new employee hired today contributes 5.3% of their paycheck towards that, and the city contributes 6.3% matching funds?
So currently, the new hire employees put in 5.3%. What the city puts in is the actual requirement, so it changes from year to year. And so what we're saying is next year it would be 6.3%. So that both of these are 2013 proposals.
Okay.
Today it's 5.1 and 6.1.
For new employees and all employees?
Sorry, these are for the current employees.
Okay.
All right. New employees are 1% less for themselves. So for a new employee today, it's 4.1%.
But they still get the 6.3.
That's correct. Well, they don't. This is a contribution to the plan. It's not to an account for them. So
No, I understand.
So they don't get
Okay.
that. It's funding the whole plan liability.
All right.
Other questions?
Don't see any. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, so then now we're going to shift a little bit and talk about some future budget challenges. We talked to you all in July about this originally as well. The city manager did include some reference to this last week in his presentation of the budget. We want to bring again to your attention some of the challenges that we think the general fund will be facing in future years. We identified that adjustments need to be made to bring our ongoing expenses in line with ongoing revenues so that the general fund can continue on a sustainable basis. So we call this a reset of the general fund and identified in July that it could be up to $3 million. And so what we want to do is give you a little bit of detail on what makes that up. But in this 2013 budget, we have been able to make a little bit of progress in that regard in the ongoing type expenses funded with fund balance and a one-year commitment. So we were able to eliminate from the 2012 budget expenses of that kind $378,915. And we will actually take you through those next week. And you're going to receive a communication tonight for next week that will detail each of those expenses that we adopted last year in the 2012 budget and which ones have been moved or funded on an ongoing basis and which ones still are being proposed to be funded with one-time dollars. So the first of these challenges is the allocation of sales and use tax revenue. I'm not going to go through this in a lot of detail because I've taken you through that a number of times already. So the allocation between the general fund and the public improvement fund, the difference In that allocation, between the historical allocation and the current allocation, it's $989,000 in 2013 sales and use tax budget revenues. So that's a big amount of the reset. In this budget, again, I mentioned we have $198,812 remaining of ongoing type expenses that we use fund balance for with a one-year commitment. So we need to try to deal with that in the future budget. The Parks and Greenway maintenance fee is another item that will need to be reset. If the direction was to include that in this proposed budget for 2013, but only extend it through the end of 2013. So you'll be acting on that during October when we bring forward the ordinances and resolutions for the proposed budget. But that's $455,000 of general fund revenue that can disappear. The administrative transfer fee methodologies, we always are working to refine these. We know that there are areas that do need definite improvement. And refinement can mean either it's going to be an increase in the ATF revenue or else a decrease in the ATF revenue. But what we do know is that in the area of our utility costs that are allocated through our facilities maintenance ATF, we do believe that if that was to be allocated more refined and more appropriately, that there would be about $200,000 impact. There are also positions that have been added in recent years in the areas of economic development and enterprise technology services that have position cost allocations that are 100% ATF supported, and we believe those need to at least be reconsidered in the future budgets. Excuse me. Technology replacements are currently made with one-time dollars, and what we do currently for vehicle replacements through the use of our fleet services fund is we have lease charges that we charge each of our operating funds. And so therefore what we do, since those lease charges are being paid with ongoing dollars, we are essentially using ongoing dollars for a replacement of vehicles. We need to do the same type of thing for our technology replacements. Instead, currently we fund technology replacements from one-time dollars. This year's budget, or proposed budget for 2013, includes $128,522 of technology replacements that are budgeted. We had another $64,622 that were requested, but were not funded. So this is mostly for PC-type replacements, also some server replacements that have reached the end of their useful life. We do have larger systems that are replaced from time to time. This year, we budgeted to replace our phone system. We have software systems that replace as well. Those are more significant dollar numbers as well. And ultimately, you would want to try to, again, use ongoing dollars to replace those instead of one time as we do, going forward. I'll talk about this a little bit in a minute here. Going forward, we think our one-time dollars are going to kind of be drying up.
Councilmember Witt?
Jim, I was just wondering, the juxtaposition of the fleet fund with the technology services, is what you're recommending is something like fleet fund for technology then, yeah?
Yes, that's correct. We actually have for years been identified that we need to have an IT internal service fund. But again, our ability to take on that ongoing cost as opposed to one time has been one of the things that has hampered us in doing so. But it's not just creating that fund, but then doing an ongoing transfer of dollars instead of one-time dollars. And then the final area that we identified is that in the annual general fund budget, we do typically include $350,000 of one-time dollars for council one-time expenses. Most of those dollars are used for the same requests year after year. So really, in a way, these expenses are quite similar to the ongoing type expenses that we fund with fund balance and a one-year commitment. So again, because of the fact that we see that our our one-time dollars are kind of decreasing. This year, we're seeing a lot less dollars for one-time in our general fund budget than we did last year. We had $2.6 million of one-time expenses from fund balance from the general fund last year. This year, we're about $1.8 million. And the tighter we do our budgeting from year to year, the more we cut line items, the less availability of fund balance will be there to carry from one year to the next. So we will be challenged to be able to fund those in the future.
Councilmember Witt?
Another question. What is the origin of the one-time funding from council? How long has that been going on?
You actually are also going to get today, I think, in your packet, a schedule of those that at least identifies back to 2004, I believe. I think it's 2004 dollars, and I think the history of this is that is when we first hit our first downfall and had a reduction in revenues and needed to make cuts in our general fund expenses. We had to eliminate some of these uses of general fund dollars that were typically funded with ongoing dollars, and most of these are events or things that the council funds for outside agencies. And that's when we began to actually give the council one-time dollars to make decisions themselves on whether these should be funded or not. So I think it's 2004, but you'll see that in the packet tonight that you received.
Thank you. It just seems like every year it's begging for dollars, and it turns out to be that's probably the hardest decisions we make is that last little bit. But it would be probably better if we didn't have one-time funding dollars and just not have that to worry about.
Well, and most of those uses are there. Like I said, every year you'll notice when you see that worksheet, you'll see how long most of them have been in place. Some have come on since 2004, but these are needs that recur each year. So again, I think they are ongoing type expenses, and we'd like to treat them at that in an ideal situation. So other future challenges include the requirements of the Affordable Care Act that you heard about here a few minutes ago, and then also possible budget impacts from the changes at Amgen that we could be facing to our sales and use tax revenues in the future. So what we plan to do, we think this is going to take 3 to 5 years to be able to reset the general fund. The first thing we'd like to do is begin to take a zero-based budget approach to reviewing city services. We'll be identifying the intended use for budget dollars in those city services, as well as identifying possible areas where we might have redundancies in city services and use of dollars. And then what we'd also like to do is refine the prioritization process that we've had in place for a few years. We've just updated it for the last 3 years, not done any refinement to the process since it was first put in place 3 years ago. So what we'd like to do is be able to ensure that that process is fully reflecting the city's priorities. And then we also need to make it so it's driving down to a lower level of services than is currently identified, and a level of services that can be separately evaluated and measured. Those are the efforts that we're going to begin to take this year, and then hopefully as we move forward in planning for the 2014 budget process, hopefully we'll be able to, through whether it be expenditure savings or hopefully a boost in revenues, we might be able to take care of some of these challenges that I've identified for you here tonight. So, questions for these items?
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I just have one point of clarification. Can you go back to the ATF slide? I got it all except that one slide turned my brain to mush.
Mush?
Right there. Can you explain what is the administrative transfer fee?
I'm sorry, I should have done that. It's a great question.
I just didn't get, this is the only slide that I just kind of...
Sorry, that's my fault. So, Mayor Coombs, members of council, actually, the administrative transfer fee is a fee that is being charged by the general fund to other operating funds like the enterprise funds or the streets fund for the services that are being provided from general fund services like the support services area, the internal services, the city attorney's areas, human resources, city manager services, even the city council services, so that we're allocating the cost for those services to the other departments that benefit from them as well. What I brought up was the utility costs here as an example, and those are dollars that we allocate based on square footage rather than by directing where's the true cost occurring. We just using square footage, which is not getting down to the correct refined level.
So it just could, each one could increase or decrease depending on how it was refined.
That's correct. We could all do a better job of allocating those costs is what I'm saying.
Well, that's why I wanted to go back to this slide, Jim. That's what I just didn't get it. Just to comment, the one thing that, having sat in on tons of financially based PowerPoints, I'm very impressed. Praise in public, you did a great job. Some of the solutions in here very creative and well done. I don't know if this is how the budget goes every year, but I feel very comfortable with your work. Thank you.
Now we got to make it happen, right?
Yeah. Good luck with that. But on paper, it looks great.
If I can add one thing to what Jim said, I think the whole point of this is also to look at the budget in a 5-year horizon once we get to the point where we want to be. So you're not looking at it from year to year, but you're able to plan 5 years out and really have a methodology that we can utilize to create some stability in the budgeting process. Because I think right now we would both agree that some of these things drive us nuts up until the last minute. And so what we want to do is create stability, and fundamentally I think that allows council, in terms of policy decisions regarding what we're funding and how we're funding, to really have all the information the council will need in that decision-making process.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim, when we're going to look at next the stuff that was just put in our Dropbox around the history of the one-time items, are we going to, have you included information as to whether or not some of the things, the programs that we support with one-time money were started with grants or other outside sources of income that, may have done mission creep after we found they were nice to have and we just couldn't give up that nice program we started with a grant from whoever?
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Levison. Actually, we have that scheduled for the 18th, so that you'll be receiving a week from tonight. So,
oh, bummer. I wanted to do that earlier. No, sorry.
Well, we have a busy agenda for you next week, so we'll keep you occupied.
Well, good. I'll look forward to that because I think that, sometimes we do have to keep a check mark with things that we've done because we've been incented to do them by somebody else, and whether or not that's something that we really have found is an aha moment that we want to continue, or is it something that we can just as easily do without at a later time and prioritize things that way as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next is our final call, public invited to be heard. Is there anyone who would like to speak to council at this time? Seeing no one, I'll close public invited to be heard. So now it's time for mayor and council comments. Are there any council members? Councilmember Samori.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. What a better way to welcome our new city manager to be part of this wonderful team than to announce that it is his birthday on September 8th. I haven't announced any birthdays in a while because I think everybody has been ducking me. But he will soon you to know better than to answer my question when I said, when is your birthday? Too late now. So please join me in singing happy birthday to Harold.
Yeah, we do it for everybody.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Harold. Happy birthday to you.
How old are you? 40. How old are you?
Whoa, the big 4-0. We got him at the end of his career.
Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I'm a little older than that. but that's okay. Happy birthday, Harold. I want to announce my business of the week. This is a new place that we all should go check out. It's the 17th Avenue Place Event Center at 478 17th Avenue. They are a new chamber member, and they will have any kind of event. They have catering on site. If you want to have any sort of gathering, you should check out the 17th Avenue Event Center.
Councilmember Witt.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let you know I was over at the mall the other day doing some shopping, and there are some new shops over at the mall. So if you haven't been over there for a while, you need to go cruise around. And I personally spent $30 on candy at Mountain Man. So go on over and have a look.
Councilmember Santos. Councilmember Levison.
Thank you, Mayor. There are a couple of things we've got coming up. Tomorrow evening is the district meeting for Colorado Municipal League, and I know I'm signed up for it. I don't know who else is going, but the mayor is going. Okay. And I guess, Sandy, are you going to be going too? No. Okay. So I guess it's just the mayor and I, and if we can bring up the issue, if they're asked about starting that discussion, Councilmember Santos, about maybe looking at lottery funds to help K-12 education. We'll try to get a word in, but I imagine, I saw an email, Sandy, can you elaborate a little bit more about what the discussion could be at Policy Committee?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Levison. Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager. I did forward your request to Kevin Baumer of CML by their deadline, and he wrote back just to kind of make sure that we're talking about just taking the pulse of that kind of a piece of legislation, because the policy statement as written currently is very specific, that if there was a bill that did ask to move some of the funds from GOCO to K-12 education, that CML would oppose it, absolutely. And so, and the policy is written very clearly that way, that it will oppose everything that is not Parks and Recreation funding for municipalities. And so his question was just confirming that we just want to have that conversation and kind of open it up for dialogue. So I confirm with him, or I will confirm with him, that that's what we would like to do. And he felt that that would be an appropriate conversation for the next policy committee meeting.
And we'll work on being able to present it in such a way that people are not going to get the wrong impression of what we're asking for. So it's going to be a little bit of a delicate thing to discuss, but we'll get on message with it and make sure we put the best possible presentation forward. And then I guess we're meeting, there's a luncheon with the golf board on Friday as well. So, and I welcome Councilmember Witt back from Tampa and surviving the hurricane and everything else that you were presented with last week.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. On Sunday, September 9th, around 8:15, the Honor Flight motorcade will be going down I-25. It's the Honor Flighter for veterans to go to Washington, D.C. to see the memorials. It's an all-expense-paid trip. So if you'd like to go honor those veterans by bringing your kids, waving your flag, I would send you to, let's see here, 8426 Costumero Place in Frederick, located north of Fire Station number 2, the Air Life helipad on I-25 West Frontage Road. So if you'd like to go out and show your support of those veterans taking their rightly deserved trip to Washington, D.C. and to be honored, might be a fun time. Thank you.
Councilmember Samori.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Just one housekeeping issue. There's a conference for NLC in Boston in tail end of November. I haven't decided whether I'm going to go to it or not, but if I do decide to go, I have already used my travel allocation, but Councilmember Witt has been kind enough to say that I could use her leftover funds, and I wanted to make sure that was okay with everybody before I made a decision.
Fine with me.
I support that also. One last thing, I would like to mention and actually ask a question around. I got a council contact email with someone deploring the fact that no one has picked all these apples waiting down the trees at Rogers Grove, and I did reply to the gentleman because one of my apple trees actually broke a branch because it was so heavy with apples. And if it's public property, I know we do have some potatoes planted out at Rogers Grove that volunteers have harvested and been able to give to charitable organizations who help distribute food to the hungry. Is there a policy when there's such a bumper crop of fruit? I mean, everybody I know is giving away fruit. And I know people are picking those apple trees that are overhanging on Pace Street, and I know there are apple trees in the median of South Parkway and Southmore Park. Do we have a policy?
I'm not sure if we have a policy. Actually, earlier today, Councilmember Santos forwarded the same email to me. So basically in discussions, I think we're going to really look at some public information outreach to let folks know that they can go there. In addition, we are going to contact some of the nonprofits that may be able to utilize those apples and let them know that they can go out and take what they need. So we're working through that and actually going to discuss the larger issue and how we deal with this. But was an issue that came up, and I think by tomorrow at noon they should have something ready to go in terms of letting folks know that they can get the apples and working with nonprofits. It's a great activity if you have young kids. Sandy was mentioning it to me earlier that she takes her son out there. And so great activity if you have young kids. Keep them busy.
I guess I'm going to use this opportunity to put in a plug for LPC and their sustainability, their volunteer program for signing up for wind energy. And it's a great program, and people that are concerned about, our natural gas and, coal plants. If you'd like to, you can just go online. They're real easy in a matter of about 90 seconds. Decide, how many kilowatt hours you want to get, and it basically costs you about 2.36 cents a kilowatt hour above our normal rate, which still is a rate that's much less than most cities pay. So if you want to get, 1% or 2% or 10% or 20%, you pretty much get to decide, and that program is available, so people that want to can take advantage of that. So, thank you. City Manager, any remarks?
No comments, Mayor, Council.
City Attorney?
No comments, Mayor.
This meeting's adjourned.